Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Signals Facebook Live. I am Genevieve Wood, and you are on the streets with Genevieve, though today we're actually in the streets, so to speak, at the brand new Bible Museum here in Washington, D.C., and I am joined by Seth Pollinger, who's the director of museum content. Seth, thank you for talking with us.
Good to be with you and get to expose the museum for the first time to lots of visitors.
That's right, because we're here today, but this is kind of a behind-the-scenes look because a museum doesn't officially open until Friday, so November 17th. Museum of the Bible is, what's the website?
It is museumofthebible.org.
So check out there. You'll be able to see everything that we're not going to be able to show you today, but we want to give you just kind of an inside look here. We're going to take a little tour. But Seth, let me first ask you, this is a concept that's been in the making for some time. How did it come together, and how long have you all been working on what's going to be unveiled on Friday?
Yeah, it started, from kind of obscure circles in the small rooms. You had a few artifacts acquired, and then it lit this fire for imagination of what could a museum be like. So fast forward 5 years, and you now have one of the largest museums in Washington with some of the greatest design teams here in Washington and the nation that have built just a beautiful museum.
They really have, and to give those of you context who've been to D.C., if you know where the Smithsonian's are, those museums, the Capitol, this is right down there in it, very close to the National American Indian Museum, which is part of the Smithsonian, about 4 blocks from the U.S. Capitol, and it is a beautiful, beautiful space. We haven't seen it all yet, but it's beautiful.
I'm afraid, we are a couple blocks from the Air and Space, and lots of people are going to leave the Air and Space to come here, so, it's going to create, waves in town. So
it is indeed. Now, let me ask you this. This is not part of the Smithsonian officially. This is a private endeavor. It's got a lot here. We're going to look at there's 8 levels to the museum, but there's 3 floors that are really dedicated exhibit space. Can you give us highlights of those, and then we're going to take a look at one of them?
Yep. The heart of the building is the history, impact, and narrative floors. So narrative, you're looking at the stories of the Bible. How do the stories unfold? What's this plot? Sort of this tension, this rising tension, and how is it that people move through the story? Secondly, you've got the history floor. This is about translation of the Bible. How did it start? What we know now is the Bible. How did it start as traditions that floated around, around several nations, and then eventually the Hebrew people write those traditions down, leads to translation that nearly spreads around the world. And then we're on the impact floor, and as that Bible has gone around the world, how has it left its mark? So what influences, have we seen? We have characters, stories, concepts, seen, and all these are influencing various cultures around the world. So we're actually going to step into the impact of the Bible around the world.
Okay, well, let's take a look. We're going to walk through these doors here, and then Seth's going to give us some ideas. So some of the things that we're looking at, and by the way, my understanding is if you wanted to see every part of this museum, like read every plaque, look at every artifact, go to every exhibit, it would take you 9 full 8-hour days to do that. So we're not going to be able to do that today, but it just shows you how much is here.
That includes nap times, of course, so, yeah, but I think it does take a couple days to really get through here.
All right, let's take a look. Let's go through. Thank you, sir. So which way should we start?
So we're gonna head this way. We're gonna be heading into 23 pavilions that are all set out, kind of like an Apple Store feel, where you can go wherever you want to go and wander through here. We're actually going to be passing up as we pass by what we call Bible Now, and when you walk in, we kind of say it's the Times Square-esque feel of what are people doing with the Bible right now. I mean, you can see infographics on what are people reading and sharing on social media.
This is real time.
In real time, what are people looking at in Cambodia, and how about El Salvador? And you can just sort of explore and see what people are reading. You can also see different various news channels, social media, sort of scraping different sites. And you're seeing what people are talking about with the Bible, like right now, and that is right now. So we're obviously passing first here our contemporary art display, and it's a digital display on the Garden of Eden, and in many other cultures, that similar ideas sparked the idea of the world tree. So it's highlighting that in this sense, biblical traditions sometimes look distinct in the Bible, but actually, some of those traditions spread out around the globe and look fairly similar as well.
You mentioned it. I mean, we're just talking technology from the get-go, but so much of this museum, I mean, it is a technological wonder, right? I mean, the digital amount of space that you see in here is really amazing, especially compared to a lot of other museums that you might be used to.
Yeah, we talk about eye candy, and we're going to see that, but I think also you got the interactivity candy, as we walk through here too with all the digital.
Great. All right, let's take a look.
So we can walk on either side of the aisle. There's just endless choices.
Why don't we walk down towards the literature and music? And by the way, maybe Lauren, if you want to catch on the other side, let me ask you about this. We have a whole area of here's how the Bible has impacted fashion. I'm going to guess most people aren't expecting that.
No, that's right. And this is kind of actually unexpected fashion, too, because you might first think, oh, well, the Bible's probably influenced how people, modesty and issues like that. Well, that may be true, but here in high culture, they've oftentimes pulled from biblical motifs in order to do fashion lines. And although it may seem a little strange and you scratch your head, well, that's actually the point, because the Bible has influenced the world in surprising ways. But at the bottom line is it's influenced the Bible in all kinds of ways, and that's the point.
All right, so we're passing different sections here. You see it labeled on music, on architecture, on art, stage and screen. I think another area over here. I know there's a lot of areas that have like small theaters and places where people can, as you said, be even more interactive.
No, that's right. So if you walk into the soundscape over here that we just passed, you can hear sort of a playlist, and surprising artists like Coolio with Gangster's Paradise is one of the songs, one of the features in the Psalm 23 chapter, in a sense, where they have probably 8 artists, just a sampling. We could have featured, we had an original list of 50 pages of options that we were considering. While we ended up scaling that down for this purpose of rights, it costs a lot of money to buy those, and so to keep expenses down, so we say, but we ended with a small list of songs. But we could have done all kinds of things. Same goes with film. When you come visit the museum, you can walk into the little theater here, and we're going to have a whole set of clips that resemble the Bible and pull in different allusions, and oftentimes from pop culture. But it's not all the movies, and that's the point. The point is that if we, wherever you look around the world, you can oftentimes see evidences of the Bible.
And then here we're going in through what's the art section. Now, a lot of the art that you see up on the wall here, many of it would be familiar to what people would think when they think of biblical photos and what they've seen in a lot of other museums.
Yeah, I have to tell you about a little bit of a controversy here, because
but we love controversy.
Okay. Well, then I'll do it. When you look at it, a lot of folks originally said, well, Madonna and Child, well, that's not biblical. Well, here's the thing. You've got a mother and you've got a son that are biblical characters. And if you look throughout history, you see all kinds of styles of presenting. So you basically have the imagination in so many locations by so many artists coming up with such different depictions. And you know what? What that shows us is extensive influence of the Bible. And again, that ends up becoming kind of the main point of the floor.
And I think you all have gone out of your way to make sure this isn't considered a Baptist museum or a Catholic museum, or even per se just a Christian museum. This is a history of a museum of literally the Bible.
Yeah, and in that sense, we really wanted to build exhibits that would resonate for different people. So while we have the Madonna and Child, we recognize that you could say, a Catholic audience would be more inclined to see the sort of the biblical integrity of that over, let's say, a lot of Protestant groups. But that's the point: is include lots of traditions that all point to the Bible to find a lot of significance for their own heritage. And so it was a deliberate attempt to pull in different voices, different traditions, because at the core of that is a book that a lot of people have found to be influential.
Yeah, and one thing I was noticing on your website, there is a restaurant here. I believe it's called the Manna Restaurant. And the chef of that restaurant is actually a famous Jewish chef here in Washington. I mean, he has another restaurant. It's not a Jewish restaurant, but he and his wife are very active in the Jewish community. So it's really bringing all those different faith traditions together that look at the Bible as certainly a holy book.
And this exhibit over here is powerful for many groups, including Jewish groups. So there are a pile of burned books, and no, it's not the Bible. For those that might be concerned, and those are the kinds of sensitivities actually that we're trying to watch constantly. But there's a pile of burned books, and over here we feature Kristallnacht, which is a time during the Holocaust, and then we have artifacts over here where sections of the Torah. So the Bible for the Jews are cut out and turned into like slippers. So deeply offensive in its actual action, but it testifies to the significance of the Bible for the Jewish people within their own heritage and what they had to endure. And that became kind of a symbol of their own Jewish identity for which they were being persecuted. But that identity is largely shaped by their interaction with their scriptures, with their Bible. So I think a lot of displays will give you a lot of mix that appeal to a lot of different audiences.
Well, I'm looking at the one here talking about more history, the Gutenberg Press, which many folks will be obviously familiar with. This is where you have the Bible. Step over. So give us a little. People will be familiar with this history, but what's the particular history you all are trying to draw out of this exhibit?
Well, frankly, this will just be a fun place where you can have kids come up here and be able to move the arm of the press with a live operator. So it'll give people direct access into thinking back about this time of the printing press. And of course, the printing press was very significant to the printing of Bibles, both early on with some of the early uses of it. As well as later printing. It was a technology that allowed for a great expansion of the Bible moving around the world. So, that piece is there, but to be honest with you, it's just going to be a lot of fun for a lot of people.
Well, and as you said, this is also, this is history, but that's also on another floor. This is also the impact the Bible's had on history through things like the printing press and others.
Yeah, good observation. You're picking up on the impact floor immediately.
So now what are we seeing back here with all these different colors?
That's a great question. We've got a couple really fascinating exhibits that we're walking through. Our crime and justice area, where really a highlight of the museum is there's not just one opinion that's being shown. In this case, we have the influence of retributive justice. And that concept from the Bible on the justice system. That's an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. And then also restorative justice, which is a little bit more based on reconciliation and kind of the demonstration of grace. Well, these are very different models. Both of them are very much influenced by the Bible in different sections of the Bible. So part of our goal in here is to say, the influence of the Bible around the world has not been the same. It looks very different from between different cultures, but also within the same culture. In this case, American culture, and you're going to kind of see that here too. As you started to ask about we call this everyday life. On the outside, you're seeing a lot of different idioms from different languages that are influenced by just biblical language and expressions, and then inside, we're gonna just highlight something like 70 or 80 or so. Images that you might just see sort of as you're wandering around your daily life, as you go through the store, as you're watching TV with advertisements. And so it's kind of just a surprising head scratcher of why is this here? And oh, I see. Boy, the Bible's just all around. And so you just got a flavor of this very exhibit. It just keeps doing that to you.
Yeah, this reminds me a whole lot of one of the things a Christian radio station here in the D.C. area does is they play phrases and they say, is that in the Bible or something else? And it's amazing how many different phrases people have. They just think is a popular phrase, or they think maybe it's something from Ben Franklin, and it's actually something from the Bible itself.
That's right. Yep. No, it's true. So you'll find a lot of variety of even who's featured here. I mean, you have obviously stamps from Israel, but then you've got Kanye West, and you've got President Obama, and you've got a picture of a Jewish wedding, and so very diverse.
All right, so we've been walking through primarily the impact of the Bible on the world, but as we're going to the right, I think this is going to move us into more the impact of the Bible specifically in America. Is that right?
That's right. We're getting closer. So we're passing the influence of the Bible on healthcare, and it's going to go into nursing, lots of centuries ago. So there's kind of some aspects of history here. I mean, you can kind of learn some lessons from the past, and more recently Florence Nightingale. So we'll highlight stories here and there, but a lot of this is sort of contemporary what's going on right now.
And how did you all? I mean, there's so much you could put in here. How did you decide what are we going to include, what are we not? What do we disclude, or will things change over time? Will we be changing the exhibits?
Yeah, this is a dynamic area. I mean, life now for us is dynamic. So so this section is meant to be very dynamic.
All right, we'll walk through this area.
We're passing the human rights section, looking at different struggles and freedoms in different ways. We're passing science. And of course, this is of interest to a lot of people, and in many ways, we're being very simple about what we're saying, and at the same time, the core message is there that the Bible, rather than contradicting fields like science automatically, the Bible has actually motivated many people, including Isaac Newton right in front of us, within his own fascination for investigating the natural world. And then we also had, we just passed government in the back corner. And that's looking, as you look out around governments throughout the world, how do we see just evidences of the Bible? So whether it's through the symbols that they're using sort of, on their coins, or whether it's actually through the kind of government they've set up, whether some are appealing to monarchy or democracy. Very different governments are finding the Bible is sort of a defense for their position.
Right. Well, and of course, now we are in officially the America section, if you will, and the Bible has had a huge influence on this country from the very beginning, but all the way through to today. And what we see behind us here, we've got Billy Graham, Martin Luther King, a lot of faces people will recognize.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. King was deeply influenced by the Bible in his rhetoric, and he would also say from his own motivations. As he was pursuing, equal rights, for all people. So we're able to kind of bring out some of those stories of where people really drew on the Bible for their inspiration, and that's very different movements. And as we'll see as we walk down, I mean, we feature the suffrage movement, but of course on the traditional side, you have a large number of people that are going to say, well, our belief in women's roles within relationships, is sort of based on the Bible, and then you're also going to have in the suffrage movement, Bible commentaries being written that are sort of explaining this, these different views. Yeah. And so both of them are, both traditional as well as progressive movements are pointing to the Bible to find, as a source of fueling advocacy. So, and that's part of the Bible story. So is the Bible story just one path? Well, this exhibit, I think, exposes it a little bit wider, and we're about to come up to another issue, and that is the Bible and slavery. So, probably most people would know. Well, of course, abolition, and you have a lot of people appealing to the Bible to say that that all people should be free. But at the same time, through being able to display some different artifacts, we're able to show other writers who are mentioning different references in the Bible to actually argue for slavery. So as folks come through, you can see there's the discussion of the Bible and slavery, and you have your pro-slavery side and your anti-slavery side. And that's a surprising story, I think, to many people.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Well, and I think, as you said, people can come to the Bible from multiple different angles, and sometimes people take out what they want, leave the parts that they don't that don't fit the narrative that they want. But you all have really tried to, it looks like, address all those different angles as best you can.
Well, you're making such a good point. We're actually passing the section on Jefferson as we speak. I mean, we have
kind of made his own Bible.
Well, that's right. So he was able to select what he preferred, yeah. and that was good with him. And so, we're, as a museum, we're not really condemning or praising Jefferson. We're just laying it out as this is what's happened in the past and giving people access into it. even like through the media that we're looking at. This is a dispute between Jefferson and Adams. Now, it actually wasn't them. It's, actors in New York. But they're reading from their actual letters, disputing back and forth about religious matters that they're appealing to the Bible to, for their arguments.
Seth, final question for you, because I know you've been very generous with your time. There's so many different folks here. Everybody, a lot of media outlets have been here among just guests who've, I think, been friends of the museum and contributed to its hopeful future success. But let me ask you about this. Why the bell? Why is this part of the exhibit?
Well, around the top of the bell, you have a reference to Leviticus, proclaim liberty throughout the land. And so, that obviously was important when they initially forged the bell, but it really became a significant tagline to several movements later on, including the civil rights movement when, they were carrying the bell on the actual bell on a truck back and forth. And why did they do it? Well, it's this reference to Leviticus that is extremely powerful to the messaging of how it became a symbol and what it became a symbol for. So that's part of our history and the significance of the Bible. So again, all of this together is just pointing out, as you said, there's so many different angles, but what's at the common core of it is people are reaching out to the Bible as a way of having social discourse and dialogue. We're in the Revolution period, and again, you can just kind of keep going on and on. And when you're able to visit the museum, we hope you can explore that more.
Seth, thank you very much for being with us. Very, very much.
Terrific. Well, thank you for joining us, because this is a treat.
Yeah, because normally we're out on the streets of D.C. talking to folks, but we wanted to kind of come into the streets of the Museum of the Bible and give you an insider's peek. Again, go to museumofthebible.org.
I think so. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, or just Google Museum of the Bible. It will come up, and you'll be able to see, starting this Friday, it will be open to the public. They're going to have a lot of special exhibits here. But many of you who follow the work of the Daily Signal and Heritage also know that much of the money that's behind this is from the generosity of the Green family, who is the Hobby Lobby family, which many of you have been very supportive of over the years. So they've been at this for a long time, and a lot of other supporters have given in as well. And I think you're going to be very happy with what you see. So come check it out. Museum of the Bible, right in the heart of Washington. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you back here next time on the Daily Signal Facebook Live.